Hello, and thank you for joining us for an evening of poetry and music from the Holler. A special welcome to those of you who may not be familiar with Chase's Mill or the nonprofit, the Mill Hollow Heritage Association, that has been renovating the mill and its waterworks. I'm Sharon Spalding, and I'm the president of the nonprofit. Tonight is the second in our series of virtual events entitled A Sense of Place. And what a better way to explore what makes a place unique than by exploring its poetry and music. If you're not familiar with Chase's Mill, it sits at the mouth of a gorge formed by a small brook that begins at Lake Warren. Since 1767, and for most of the past 250 years, there has been a working water-powered mill on this site. At one time, there were 5 mills in this immediate area. Since 2016, we've been renovating the mill with the goal of returning it to the community as a center for hands-on learning for children and adults, as a living museum that both preserves our heritage and looks to the future, and as a place where people can gather for discussions and presentations. Tonight, Alstead artists Edith Chase and Randy Miller will treat us to an hour of poetry and music. Ellen will read a few of her poems and a few of her mother's poems, Edith Chase. Randy will play fiddle tunes that relate to milling and will also perform one of his own compositions, Mill Hollow Reel. At the end of the evening, there will be a time for questions and answers with Ellen and Randy, and I'll also be available if you have questions about the mill and our plans for reopening. Now, a bit more about our artists. Ellen grew up in Alstead, then lived in other parts of the country before returning in 2007. In addition to earning awards for her paintings, her occupations have included potter, carpenter, scientific illustrator, software designer, and most recently, teacher of poetry. She considers her study of illustration to be a good foundation for writing poetry, as both arts depend on sensory information, metaphor, and imagery to create an emotional effect. Randy comes from a musical family. He and his 3 siblings took music lessons while growing up. He has played fiddle and piano at contra dances and Irish sessions nationwide for more than 40 years and has recorded 6 albums of traditional New England and Irish fiddle music. Randy co-hosts regular Irish music sessions in Hanover, Newport, and Peterborough, and is the dance fiddler for the Inn at East Hill Farm. He moved to Mill Hollow in the spring of 1973. In 1975, he was commissioned by Edith Chase to make several wood engravings for Heman's book, More Than Land. When Randy first moved to Mill Hollow nearly 50 years ago, he was inspired and moved by the beauty of the hollow, the lake, the mill, the old houses and barns, and by the friendly neighbors. He composed this tune, the Mill Hollow Reel, in its honor. Randy?
My mother, Edith Chase, came to Mill Hollow in the 1920s, and where she met and fell in love with my dad, Keene Chase, and she fell in love with this place. She had grown up in a very conservative Quaker farm community in Indiana, where music and dancing were essentially banned. However, poetry filled the void and became the spice of communications with her friends and family, and was central to her lifelong involvement in early childhood education. Her poems for children appeared in numerous publications, including 3 picture books for children from Scholastic Canada. And one poem that she wrote for 4-year-olds reached a highly improbable fame when it went viral on the TV show, The Big Bang Theory. You might have heard Warm Kitty, or as they called it, Soft Kitty. Who knows what she would have thought of that, but we do know that she had a keen appreciation for Randy's kind of music. You've just heard Randy's interpretation of Mill Hollow, and here is her take on the place, which she called home for most of her life. And it includes an invitation to you. Mill Hollow. There's a little gray house in Mill Hollow between wooded hills and a pond. There's a small winding road you can follow through meadows and forests beyond. There's a brook dancing down to the valley and a hilltop that beckons to climb. There are peaceful, still places to dally. Won't you come and see them sometime? The next poem is one that I wrote one winter day last year. It isn't specifically about Mill Hollow, but it happened here. A raven's afternoon. A lone black bird rowing across a sapphire sky drops rough shards of raven speak into a lake of crystal cold in a February day, breaking the stillness of watchful woods. On a whim, he beaches in a white oak tree, settles his silhouette on a slender branch, glossy black against the deep, still sky. His lady calls from far away, "Come back!" Or did she say, "Just be like that, I'm staying here"? She calls again. Not quick to answer, he's mulling over his options. Not one suits his plan, it seems. His stuttered croaks now sound like bubbling water. Sweet talk, perhaps, inviting her to follow, or playing for time, sweet time for solitude. Next is Randy playing a set of 2 slip jigs. In Ireland, a jig is a tune in 6/8 time, meaning there are 6/8 notes per measure. A slip jig is 9/8 time, or 9/8 notes per measure. The first is called Dusty Miller, followed by Morning and Night. I don't know about you, but I find it hard to sit still when Randy's playing. I want to get up and dance. Early morning can be a magical time when no one else is around and nature feels quiet and uncomplicated. This is a poem of mine called A Cow Named Joy. This morning, a solitary cow in dew-bejeweled pasture gave me joy. I tried to bring the joy back home to you, but all my words could only bring the cow. My error was to look directly at her. Had I but looked a little to the side, at ancient rock and weather-beaten shed, at lichen-crusted oak and arching birch, I would have known her tranquil, sun-warmed flank, the rise and fall of moist and gusty breath, heard the rip and chew of languid grazing, while a wood thrush celebrated last night's rain. My mother's poem, Secret Dawn, is about her treasured private time in a large family and a life of endless farm work. This is one of the poems that Scholastic published as a picture book for children. As she preferred to write for children, you'll notice that she uses rhyming a lot, but not rigidly. This is Secret Dawn. When the first thin light comes creeping up the early edge of day, and the household still is sleeping, then I dress and slip away to the place that I am keeping for my secret hideaway. Stealing toward the giant billow of a tree across the lawn like a leafy mammoth pillow, in the dim delight of dawn, up I climb into my willow while the night is hardly gone. Up in the willow is wispy and whispery, silent and silvery, misty with mystery. Nobody else in the world is awake. Nobody knows how the little leaves quake. Nobody knows that the willow is mine. Nobody knows of my shadowy shrine. Nobody knows of the place where I hide my notebook and stub of a pencil inside my mystery box of waterproof tin. Nobody knows I am writing in the favorite thoughts and the singing rhymes that I think to myself and write sometimes. Nobody knows of my special tree where we are alone, my secret and me. Randy will now play a medley of two Irish reels, the Mill House and the Millstone. You may notice a strong tendency for both my mother and me to write about nature, but out here in the country, that's what we do. We're constantly reminded of the secret lives and the habits, the needs of other occupants of what we like to think of as our world. This is Apple Harvesters by my mother, Edith Chase. Gathering apples from under the tree that the legal world says belongs to me, I found another harvester had been there to help himself and carry away a share. Some little creature out of field or wood had tasted the fruit and found it good. He sampled many. A few were nearly gone. Then a crew of ants had carried the reaping on. Some of the fruit was left high on the bank where weeds and meadow grass grow thick and rank. I will not move them away. He might come back when he feels he can without risk of attack. I wish I could know who he is and call him by name. I would be the last to dispute his priority claim. There are apples enough for him and the ants and me. I like to think it's our tree, not just my tree. And then I wrote this one after finding my garden had been raided by some unseen neighbors. But when I admitted to myself that we had planted and harvested more than we really needed, I could see things from a different perspective. This is called Turkeys in the Garden. You might think of Thanksgiving the way the rows of kale stand in a rectangle, like the table the pilgrims set. The guests come out of the woods in their dark and feathered robes with tribal marks of iridescent gold, murmuring one to another as they contemplate the spread. Polite sampling of the leafy bounty turns to ravenous gusto, their way of giving thanks and praise to the creator of all things, to be the diners on this day and not the dined upon. The next two tunes by Randy originated in England and were brought to New England centuries ago. The first is called The Miller's Maggot. The word maggot doesn't mean the same thing to us as it did back then, but long ago it meant a whim or a favorite. So we could say this tune means the miller's favorite. The second tune is the Steamboat Quickstep. During the 1800s, there was a small steam packet that operated on our very lake, Lake Warren. Most of us know the feeling of wonder that comes when we encounter something unexpected. Here's what came from my mother's ramble in the woods. It's called Wild Duck's Nest. I followed a brook that was tumbling down the side of a hill in a nearby town, splashing and sparkling, dashing and darkling, down and down and down and down to pause in a little pond. Hopping so happily down the hill, jumping the brook and seeing it spill from rock to rock and ledge to ledge, I followed down by the plashy edge, down and down to the pond. Suddenly, up from before my feet, a wild bird's flight rose free and fleet. A wild duck rose like a hasty breeze, up and up and up, till it disappeared through the tops of the trees, and beyond. Startled, I stopped and stood so still I could hear the beat of the wings until the watery sound of the brook had drowned their passing whisper. I looked around, and there, on the ground, a dozen eggs in a nest I found by the brook plunging down to the pond. A hemlock tree, as high as my knee, was trying to hide the eggs from me, trying to guard that secret well with spreading branches of lacy green. I would never have guessed it curtained a nest, except for the lone duck leaving the scene. I counted the eggs with great delight, then, sorry I'd given the duck such fright that she should have taken to desperate flight, and hoping her fears to quickly dispel, I went on down the hill to the pond. A poem of my own tells of a different kind of wonder just east of Mill Hollow. This is called In a Clearing. A minibus, once outfitted with everything a romantic or two would need for an adventure, sat in a small clearing next to the cemetery. It seemed to await the day when that one or two would return for another mobile search for love or escape or adventures still to know. But for the loss of keys or tire pump or sheer will, it waited 8 or was it 10 long years while hope came and mowed the weeds and rust and mice moved in. And then one day the van was gone without a trace of when or how. Its shadow and even its tracks in the soil faded to hearsay among the ferns. No one noticed until a chair appeared, a once white rocker with wicker seat and filigreed back curved to support the frail or prayerful wanderer or one too tired to go on. Was this the rusted white van's ghost? Or hope eternal downsizing? Or slowing down enough to read the signs? It's a short trip by bus to the cemetery, but longer by contemplative pause. Meanwhile, until rot and insects claim it, the chair presides over the clearing with promise of squeaking joints and watchful ease and meditation on memories of love or escape or adventures still to know. Randy's next set of tunes commemorates the grains that were brought to the mill for grinding. The first is called The Stack of Barley Hornpipe, followed by a Scottish reel called Corn Rigs Are Bonny. Are you dancing yet? Here's another poem by my mother that became a scholastic picture book. When I was a little child, on the long drive to Keene, she once pointed out to me how the water in the ditch by the road flowed from ditch to brook to river to ocean. I like to think that that was the origin of this poem. Waters. Sprinkling, wrinkling, softly tinkling, twinkling, tiny brook. Running, funning, hiding, sunning, cunning baby brook joins a grown-up brook. Dashing, splashing, sunlight flashing, stony grown-up brook joins the river, broad, smooth river, deep as deep can be. Slower, slower, slower flowing, wider, wider, wider growing, till it empties all its waters out into the great huge sea. Rolling, rolling, tossing, rolling, splashing waves forever rolling in the great wide sea. And now I'll tell you about a kayak adventure on the Connecticut River last summer with my friend Mary. You may be familiar with Schubert's Trout Quintet, which is, I referenced that in this poem. Forella is, I guess, the German word for trout. On the Connecticut, we slid our kayaks into the river below the rapids at Bellows Falls, below the rocky hulk of its mountain. We paddled up near the power station that exacts a toll from the passing water, making it work the turbines for its freedom, and near the crumbling remains of the paper mill that once colored that industrious river blue and green and sometimes magenta. In the wide space where the river rests after its labor in the mills, a fisherman near the far shore cast and cast again as he drifted slowly upstream in the eddy's sluggish curl. We paddled slowly south to follow the languid flow, and this is where Franz Schubert must have been when he saw his slippery trout burst from the shadows, presto or animato, or however he marked that sudden surge as the river pitched forward, driving us allegro like that silvery forella over rocks that paved the sluice and flew beneath us like 16th notes tumbling down the page, all keeping time with the driving music of the river. At last the river grew bored of its romp and slowed to a regal stroll. I see Schubert draw a deep breath and wipe his brow before beginning on the relative safety of the finale. We too breathed deep as we were carried southward into the sedate calm of slower water, while the phantom fish, brown and green and streaked with magenta, found refuge among the shadowy rocks. And we drifted on, hoping that somewhere, somehow, the riverbank, barricaded by 1,000 years flotsam of floods and ice, would open to let us come home to dry land. For Randy's next tune, he'll play a very old Irish jig called the Mill Pond. He learned this tune from a recording made in 1941 by a band from Dublin, Ireland. And he's going to play along with the original recording. One of the wonders of my kayak trip down the Connecticut was to see a gray squirrel swimming across to Vermont. Who knew a squirrel could swim? The other question forms the title of my next poem. Why did the squirrel cross the river? Into the river on the eastern shore, a squirrel dropped from a high oak tree. Did he misjudge the space from twig to branch, or the caprice of a midday gust of wind? Or had he made plans to go to Vermont for the afternoon, or forever, for the thrill of the fall, for a better life? Whatever the whys, he fell down, down, gray fur riffling in the rushing air, adrenaline pumping, legs outstretched, adjusting balance, controlling for the plunge. The river caught him, sensed he was neither fish nor fowl, tossed him up and moved on. And there he was, soggy tail trailing like a broken rudder, radar scanning for osprey and hawk, for turtle and boulder and snag, rowing through squirrel miles of current toward the vine-tangled, indifferent shore of the promised land. And now to sum up the whole activity of writing poems, my mother recorded her reasons for writing poems in this one, and includes an implicit invitation to all of us, to children of all ages. This is called playing. Some people play with marbles, and others play with cats, and some play with tennis rackets, and some with baseball bats. Some people play with puzzles. I do myself sometimes, but mostly what I play with are rhythms, words, and rhymes. Sometimes it's like a puzzle to find the words that fit, to say the thing you wish to sing and make a verse of it. Sometimes it's hard to do it, but once you get it done, you know that writing poems can be a lot of fun. In the past, dried potatoes were sometimes used to augment the grain being ground in the grist mill. Here's Randy playing a medley of reels called The Bag of Spuds and The Mills Are Grinding. And this should leave you with a song in your heart and maybe a bounce in your step. The last poem that I have to share with you today was written not by my mother or me, but by Robert Louis Stevenson. And it was read to me by my mother when I was very young. It didn't mean much to me then, but when I rediscovered it just a couple of years ago, I realized how profound it was in ways that no child could really know. I think it's relevant to our mill because it's about water and everything that water represents. But most important, it's a metaphor for something we all strive for. This is Where Go the Boats from A Child's Garden of Verses. Dark brown is the river, golden is the sand. It flows along forever with trees on either hand. Green leaves a-floating, castles of the foam, boats of mine a-boating. Where will all come home? On goes the river and out past the mill, away down the valley, away down the hill, away down the river, 100 miles or more. Other little children shall bring my boats ashore. Thank you for being with us today.
It was phenomenal.
That was
Thank
wonderful.
you. Was
That
wonderful.
was so fabulous. And
I know.
Brendan, can you, so we've actually, Brendan unmuted everybody so that we can take a moment and really honestly applaud for these two amazing artists. Yay!
Hey,
Beautiful.
How nimble your fingers still are, Randy.
It was spectacular, and you know, honestly, it just felt like it was just so lovely to have a piece of Mill Hollow coming into our homes tonight. Thank you. Okay, so let's just take a few minutes and see if there's any questions. And I think probably the easiest way to do that is if you have a question, maybe just raise your hand and then, you know, like this, and then Brendan will highlight your screen and then you can just ask the question.
I'll turn on light.
So Brendan, can you do that? Oh, great.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi, I'm David Martin down in Westford, Massachusetts. I'm curious about the mill that you're working on most primarily and what it was used for, what it manufactured.
Oh, okay. Well, so so the mill, let's see if I can give you a short answer. This current structure, this building was built 100 years ago. It was finished in 1919 by Hartley Dennett. And the building itself, you know, he took the previous structure down. It had really fallen into repair, you know, disrepair and kind of ruin. But he repurposed the timbers, the 18th and 19th century timbers, and then he scavenged the banks nearby of the ruins of other mills and for the waterworks. So in his, you know, most recently in his lifetime, he used it as a woodworking shop. He also opened it up for neighbors to use to mill lumber. And then when he died in 1936, the mill passed to his stepson, Keene Chase. And Keene used the mill to have classes. He taught woodworking classes for children and adults. upstairs was also used for weaving classes and just all kinds of gatherings, religious gatherings, contra dances. And then to more specifically answer your question, at different times, it was used as a lumber mill, as a fulling mill, and you know, a variety. I think it also manufactured baby buggy spindles.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for the question. Any other questions?
No.
No questions, anybody?
I'm wondering if there are still the books, like the one about the willow tree. Are they published by Scholastic, or can we, the books that Edith poems were connected with? I know the New Baby Calf, but I don't.
I can answer that. Both Waters and Secret Dawn are out of print now, but I think I still have a copy, at least one copy of Secret Dawn. So if you see me later, I can pick you up with.
And let me just chime in here too, that one of the things that we're going to be doing is sending out a follow-up email as a thank you to everybody who joined us tonight and for those who had registered but couldn't. And we're going to include in there how to get in touch with Ellen if you're interested in either her mother's poetry or purchasing a copy of her collection of poems. And also we'll include the link to Randy's website for, you know, if you want to purchase some of his music. Any other questions? Yep.
We have a question from Ed.
Yes, I would like to say how much I appreciate everyone for keeping the history alive. This is a very special place. It's a very special community. And there's so much you can teach us, and we can teach each other. It's just an incredible community of people. And we've all been touched by this location, by these people. And I just really appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much for saying that. You know, this is an amazing group of people and an amazing community. And one of the things that we're looking for are ideas for what are the other kinds of events that you'd like to see. You know, we did the last one with the conversations. And I like this idea of being able to bring us together as a pivot during, you know, since we really couldn't open officially this year and we've had to postpone offering classes and all of our in-person events. But anyway, also in the survey that you're all going to be receiving, if, you know, there will be an opportunity to give us your ideas, your thoughts, your suggestions about whether or not we should continue. And if so, what are some of those other things that you'd like to, you know, see us do? Okay, any other questions?
I had a comment to that end. It's just really kind of wonderful for those of us who are children of Mill Hollow but settled far away to be able to be there for a little bit of time like this. And so I'm all for these kinds of virtual community gatherings happening regularly, even when things start up in person. And there are so many wonderful artists and thinkers and special people that live in East Alstead and the surrounding areas that I think you could probably come up with a good series like this.
Good. Well,
I would come.
Good. Well, send us your ideas too. You know, that'd be great. Okay, I think we can have time for one final comment or question. Anybody?
Yes, I have one.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, so for the last person that spoke, it used to take us 7 to 10 days to drive from California to East Alstead in the summertime in the 60s. And tuning in on Zoom, it's a lot faster.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, thank you all. I want to just, you know, close the evening, but I have a couple of other final kind of closing comments here. you know, first and foremost, I really want to thank Randy and Ellen again. I know, I mean, they made it look so effortless tonight, but I know that they both put in a tremendous amount of time, and really both of them have given a lot of thought into preparing which poems to read, which pieces to play. So, you know, from the bottom of my heart and really on behalf of everybody, thank you for bringing us this evening. So I don't think that can be said often enough, but thank you both. The other person I want to thank is Brendan as our tech guru. He's really helping us learn, and thank you so much. Okay, I talked about the survey, and and then, you know, yes, tonight was a free event, but if you would like to make a donation, you can do so online at our website, or you can also always just write a check, you know, whatever, however that works and for you. And let's see what else. Oh, so we'll also be keeping you apprised of upcoming events, and we have one scheduled at the end of July. You'll be getting an email about that. That's it. Thank you for being with us. One last final thing, Randy and Ellen, if you could just stay on for a few minutes, that would be great. Thank you, and good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you
Bye.
for being with us.